I need to push the button, don't I? Oh, flipping lost the right button. There it is. Anyone would think I didn't do this regularly. Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard for the roadmap for today, the 1st of June. Hello, Adam.
Hey, good to see you all.
Adam, for those of you who don't know, because sometimes we have fresh people along, Adam is the head of the preservation crew. What do the preservation crew do, Adam?
So what we do is once routes and trains have been out and more routes and trains have come out with newer features, we make sure that those first or initial routes and trains are brought up to standard and kept relevant and new and fresh, that they're expanded with all the latest gizmos that we find in Trenton World 2 routes.
So you basically go back and polish stuff that's already out?
Yes, and obviously missing the giant point is that we take on board feedback from players, and we then implement that and investigate and find and resolve if there are any issues that have been reported. So we are that feedback loop. We watch the forums, we watch Kayaku, our support system, incredibly important when people raise tickets.
Yeah.
And yeah, we go back and we check, right, what do we need to investigate, what do we need to look at? And then, in addition to that, we look at adding and polishing and making sure stuff is good. So we hopefully continue to add value for money for all of our products.
Yeah. No, they're saying that it looks like we've both been out in the sun, which is certainly true.
Yes.
on my side of things. Yes, yeah, both been out in the sun independently, but the sun seems to be all over the place at the moment.
Being a ginger, I don't have anything in between not burnt and completely burnt. So, yeah, I just change colour in a second. It's crazy.
Okay. Well, I mean, just embrace it. Now, before we get to your questions, let's go through the roadmap this week of what's happened, and not a lot. There you go. That's the long and the short of it. And last time around, not a lot had happened either. And this is only going to become more pronounced as we get closer and closer to rush hour. So at the end of June, and I'm not sure if it will be the last one in June or if it will be the first one in July, the roadmap will be replaced by what we're calling the rush hour roadmap, which will be a kind of combination where we're up to on rush hour development and FAQs. So it will be kind of an FAQ sort of stream. We're still figuring out what the right approach for that is, and the reason that we're making that switch is because the entire development team, including the preservation crew, will be focused on the rush hour release, because obviously this is 3 times the amount of material that we would usually put out at once. So there's a lot. 3 routes, man. Three routes, Adam. Oh, okay, and an Unreal Engine update and a whole bunch of core updates as well, and extra functionality and all of that. Yeah, all right. It's more than triple what we would normally put out. So I missed the opportunity to call it the Rush Map. I think that's going to be a casual community kind of name for it. I think by and large we'll stick to something slightly more formalised so people who know what's going on. As far as the regular roadmap is concerned, we'll put that over there for the moment, and then as soon as rush hour's out, we'll be bringing it back with all new stuff in there and whatever else is going on. So the things that have changed, you're probably aware of already, but Cane Creek has moved to upcoming because that's now in the full throes of being tested. And what else? Cathcart Circle is in next release. I believe many of you have seen the preview already. We'll have... I think we've got another preview this week. I think we've got another preview this week. And it's out next week. So there you go. So that's it, next release. But the one that kind of attracted the most attention is the 313 has dropped down from upcoming into in production. And the reason for that is we want to do more work on it. We felt that having spent some time in testing, and that this is not unusual. actually. This kind of thing happens more commonly than you might expect. In fact, it's unusual you haven't seen it as much this year. But historically, so before the roadmap was introduced, this kind of thing would happen all the time. Is things would kind of shift position. It's very much like the East Coast Way passenger information screens. Is they've been done for yonks, and when are we expecting those now? Because obviously they were planned to come out alongside the 313. When are we? Have you got a rough idea of when we're expecting them?
We're trying to bring it forward. We don't want it delayed along with the 313, but I wouldn't want to speculate. Really,
you don't want to
it could well come out
learned,
with the 313.
You've learned.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to speculate.
But saying about the passenger information systems being done, since the last stream that I was on, where they seem to appear quite prolifically, unintentionally for some reason, there's been some interesting feedback and some cool feedback. So actually, I've been playing around and seeing if I can implement any of that feedback. I won't say what I'm doing because I don't know if the changes I've made will still get included.
And you've got to find the time to actually do it.
Well, this is it. This is a small little thing, like the excellent feedback we had on the Long Island Railroad information systems, that little tweaks and a few little final polishing touches that, community feedback gets to us. We do try and get that back into circulation quickly. So I've had a play around. I've seen if there's anything else I can do. If it gets included when East Coast Way gets updated, that'll be awesome. If not, it'll be in the next update, the next window, which won't necessarily need East Coast Way to be updated again. It'll just be the next viable window that the build team can get those updates out.
Right.
But yeah, so we're always reading the forums, we're always reading customer feedback, player feedback. So yeah, do keep talking about stuff. It's awesome.
The bus driver GP, I'm going to pick your version of this question because there are several. But aren't the 313 and 314 very similar? Yes, they are. Yep. But we rebuild it every time anyway because it's not. We spoke about this with Matt not so long ago. In that, if you're building out the interior of a carriage, that's as much work as building out a locomotive or anything along those lines in terms of vehicle modelling. It's the same amount of work because we want our interiors to look authentic. So there is a lot of time and effort that's spent in doing those. And obviously the 313 and 314, they've got slightly different layouts and they've got slightly different interior livery going on there. So it is actually a large amount of work. But so I mean, we know it's disappointing. We know it's been on the roadmap for ages. I mean, we mentioned before that it was put on probably earlier than it should have been. But that's a learning curve thing. We've since kind of fixed up the learning curves. In fact, this whole year has been learning curves as far as roadmap is concerned, and how we make it as effective as could be. So yeah, it's just taking longer than anything should sit on the roadmap going forwards, but we'll see how it is. In terms of how long is the wait going to be for the 313, don't know, but I will try and find out if it's likely to release before rush hour or after rush hour because it could go either side. And the reason for that
it's not that we want it to, it's just these are the way
no, of course we don't want it to. You can't sell it if you haven't released it, can you? You can't kind of go, and now we get the fruits of our labours.
Exactly.
So it's, I mean, but when we've got, when I can give even a vague ballpark one side or the other, then we'll let you know. But there we go.
A few people have asked, will the East Coast Way update be delayed alongside the 313? We don't want it to, but I don't want to promise that it'll come out before. The 313 is a great point to update the East Coast Way route, but if we can bring it forward, if the 313 goes back further than is comfortable, then we'll try and separate them out. But this is all in the hands of the build team, so there's no point in speculating whether it's going to be held back further or not.
Paradise Velocity is low priority, that's why. No, it's not low priority. Nothing is any higher or lower priority. I mean, routes take a slightly higher priority, but the vehicle team isn't the only one that works on routes. Because
East Coastway is also very new compared to the routes we've been doing recently. I think Rapid Transit and Long Island are twice, maybe 3 times older than East Coastway, and they've already been updated. So
and it's popular.
Yeah.
It's
one of my favourite routes, actually. I can't wait for London Brighton.
It's a popular route. That's that's why we're adding more stuff to it. So that's. It's not a prioritisation. Well, it is. It's a work prioritisation, but it's not because the 313 isn't important. It's because the vehicle teams are working on other vehicles, which will become apparent as we start talking more about rush hour. And the main reason why that is a big switch is because in the last 2 weeks, pretty much the entire development team have switched over to working on Unreal Engine 4.26 rather than 4.23, which is what the current game is built under. For those of you for whom that all sounds like Greek, apart from those of you who are Greek, at which point it sounds like Swahili, then what that basically means is that it's the engine that powers the game. It's the stuff that makes all the code work, makes all the graphics hang together, and makes the whole thing fairly seamless. And with each version update that we do, there is a lot of new functionality that the development team get to play with in order to make a great game simulator experience. And sometimes that can come with additional complexity. So when we released Train Sim World 2, we upgraded from, what were we on previously?
4.16.
4.16.
So it was actually quite a big jump. We've realised that we can't make those kinds of jumps. So that's why it's gone 4.23 to 4.26 very quickly.
So the jump from 4.23 to 4.26 is less significant, but your team are also switching to 4.26 as of the next couple of weeks.
Yes, imminently, yeah.
And what's your focus there going to be?
It will still be the usual. So we'll still start looking at, we are looking at Peninsula Corridor and Oakville Subdivision. They're the next work package, as it were. But we need to also support the release of Rush Hour in making sure that all the Preserve Collection work, when they're released. What we don't want to do is another staggered release of each route. All the content does need to be rebuilt. All the routes and the trains need to be recompiled under 4.26. So we're going to switch our efforts now to supporting that and making sure everything is good.
Yeah, because this is worth bearing in mind. When we released Train Sim World 2, we had to update every route and loco that we'd previously released, and that's why it wasn't all available immediately. And the plan right now is that everything will be available immediately, but part of the work needed to make sure that can happen is that the preservation crew are shifting to be focused on that body of work of making sure that all of the preservation routes, all of the existing routes, all of the existing locos seamlessly move over onto the new version. Seamlessly, there's an optimistic word. I believe in you, Adam.
Well, the good news
and
is
your merry team.
The good news is because the jump isn't so big like it was between 4.16 and 4.23, there is actually very little that we need to do so far from what we've been looking at. So we're feeling an awful lot better about that transition from 4.23 to 4.26.
Okay.
But we are there, and we're going to now, we're several months out. We're going to be looking at the preservation crew. The main team only have the 3 new routes to worry about. The preservation crew on my board have 15 to 16 routes to worry about. And we're a smaller team, so we need more time to make sure everything's good.
So several people are saying, you should go straight for Unreal Engine 5, or you should see. Look at what UE5 can do. They're all tech demos.
Yeah.
Be wary of tech demos setting your expectations, because you don't know until you start dabbling with it heavily exactly where its foibles are, where the limitations are. So as someone who appreciates things that are put together with these engines, you kind of go, flipping it, that looks brilliant. And they make it sound so easy to build stuff. Maybe it is, but that's not yet our focus. And also, you have to be very, very brave to go out under an engine 0.0. Very, very brave, because there's going to be some unintended stuff going on in there anyway. So,
but also, we've got a giant hobby that we want to support, that we're part of. Just jumping to another engine might not be the greatest thing. And, like you said, some aspects need to gain in maturity. So the wonderful tech demo of Nanite and Lumin, you don't see any vegetation in those scenes, or very little. We're talking like scrub and weeds and things. So, let's see more of what Unreal Engine 5 can do, and then we'll think about it in the future.
We work with kind of high tier tech in putting together Train Sim World, but we're not the cutting edge. We're not the cutting edge company. We like things to bed in a little bit before we get stuck in. So that those early kinks can be worked out. And it's probably going to be a couple of years before you see anything running with Unreal Engine 5. But of course, that development work starts now. So obviously, we've got developers who are going to be poking it around in their spare time to go, oh gosh, that's useful, or that's going to cause all of that stuff is going to be going on in the background. But it's going to be a good time until we're out on UE5. Not least.
There's so much more we can do with Unreal Engine 4. There's
we haven't
no rush.
We haven't finished doing that yet, and we have to consider our players as well. Is that if UE5 is more demanding of hardware resources, UE5 if it's more demanding of hardware resources than UE4, we have to consider, okay, is this a PC and next gen console only? Or is it going to be, are we going to try and make it work on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One? We don't have the answers to those questions yet, because we're still focused on UE 4.x. So anyway, that's what the focus is going forward. Let's talk about all the work that you've queued up. So all the stuff that's gone on. What routes have you finished work on now that are either awaiting testing or awaiting a release slot? What have we got to look forward to?
So it's kind of finish, not finish, because we are still working. Since the Bakerloo West Somerset packages, which I believe was March or April time, the team has got a bit skewed, and the environment side and the art side was able to get much further ahead. There was some learning being done on the technical side, and I was supporting the release of Long Island and Rapid Transit. So we've done a lot of work on Bakerloo line. We've got things like the speed limits working off the front of the train instead of the entire train having to pass the speed board. We've got improved signalling, especially on the overground section with the colour light or the LED signals. We have improved stopping points at the ends of the platforms, because the accuracy of stopping and the consistency of stopping on the platforms is quite crucial on an underground route. And we've got improved weather, and we brought winter back in on Bakerloo. Originally it was released without winter, because we saw that given 50% of the route is underground, would underground trains really capture any snow? So we've worked out a better way of implementing snow onto the overground section. West Somerset is still finished, not finished. Again, all the art's been done, so we've got level crossings working in the iteration that we've got of level crossings at the moment. So the gates will react to the trains approaching, which looks awesome on West Somerset since we've released working level crossings, because they're not your modern barriers that go up and down. They're actually swing gates that come out across the track. So there's a beautiful scene at Blue Anchor where you approach the station and the crossing gates closed to the track. And then obviously once you have completed the passenger stop and everything, the gates open and you can then proceed further down the route. So that's really, really cool to see. We still don't have traffic across these level crossings yet. The main team is still working on that upgrade to level crossings, so we haven't got it on preserved.
Chief. Now, look, I'm jumping in, Adam.
Jump in.
You said we haven't got traffic going across level crossings yet implies that's a thing that's definitely coming. It's not, is it?
Well, if it's not coming, then I'll be tasking my team to do it, because I don't really consider level crossings as level crossings if they only react to the trains. They need to react to the cars as well. So if the main team are not working on that, then I'm pushing them for that. So I consider our current implementation as version 0.5. We could put it that way. And we're implementing the tech as fast as it's developed, but obviously it takes time to go through the routes.
And until you see it on the roadmap, it's not something that's happening. There, aspiration boys, take it easy.
Yes. But I can push the team and say, look, this is going really well when we've released it on the Preserve crew as well. On the Preserve crew.
Look, you've riled up the chat. You've got them all excited about stuff, and I don't disagree with you in that vehicles going across level crossings is a good thing. The point is that we know already that you've got to find the time to do this.
Well, in some cases, my team can't do it, so we can't make core changes. So you're absolutely right in that I was vying into aspiration mode there in aspiration world. So yeah, you're right.
You're allowed to. That's fine, yeah. But you've got to mark it as such. Otherwise, you've gone out with an unfounded promise of something that might happen, and that's. Yeah. We routinely run into stuff we'd love to do versus stuff we can do versus stuff we have time to do.
Very much.
And we need to be clear on where the line is between the three. Otherwise, yes. if we didn't promise anything, no one would get upset that we'd broken promises, you see. And if we do promise stuff and then it doesn't turn up, people do get upset. And that's quite reasonable.
Well, it's because I'm so close to the software as well, and it's things I want, just as passionately as everybody else does, that I drop into those modes because I'm here with the team, and I'm pushing them as much as everybody else is. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
The Pink Train says, "Can Adam do the next stream on himself?" No, he flipping can't.
I would never be allowed.
No, I wouldn't do that to you. It's just gonna lead you down a path of madness that you don't want to go down.
If anybody remembers, I happened to be on the very first Train Sim World videos and streams. So yeah, that's why I took a number of years break.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
once bitten, twice shy, but you're trying to get yourself bitten again. So pack it in.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
So we've got Bakerloo, we've got West Somerset.
Talk main specified barn.
Yeah, main specified barn. So we didn't actually put level crossings on main specified barn because apart from the harbour area at Aschaffenburg, there were no level crossings across the route, and the ones where the roads do cross the track in the harbour area, because it's an industrial estate, a private estate, they don't have barriers anyway. And because the level crossing tech doesn't control the traffic, there didn't really seem any point in adding something to the route.
Do they not do sound effects or flashing lights or any of that kind of business?
No, it's just a sign on the road, or if at all. It's literally because it's a private estate and the trains are not very frequent. I think they just go off, there's a train coming, they sound their horn, the bell will be going. So there was no tech, so there was no point in loading that route with more things that could potentially impact performance if it didn't really add any visuals to the route itself. So yeah, we haven't put them on main specified barn, but we've done things like the improved track rendering, which is going down really well. I'm really pleased that that's working. It was something, again, that I was keen to see in all the older routes. We have added the platform climb up, which I think is making people a lot happier to run around the routes and explore. And we've also, been looking at freight exchange. We fixed the scenario freight exchange on Rursig Nord. So those are coming along. So that stuff's going. And then obviously we started moving into Peninsula Corridor and Oakville Subdivision. So got about half a dozen routes that are now queuing up, a bit more work to finish off. And then we'll be trying to release them post rush hour because they now need to come out on 426.
When it comes down to bug reports and tech problems that people have encountered on those routes, how many of those can you actually tackle versus requiring support from the core team? And if you encounter something which is, we should fix this up, are you able to then call the core team in to give you a hand with that?
So I literally pull everything in We have bug databases, we have feedback databases, we have the forums, we have Kayaku support system, incredibly important. Please do submit a ticket. And I pull it all in and we go through what's well, first of all, we try and cut out anything that is working as intended. So maybe there's been some feedback about a train should do a certain thing, or there's a building that is missing from the route or something. We'll try and weed those out because we may have made decisions during development that is the way it is intended to be. So we get rid of those first, and then we basically grab the ones that are going to make the biggest difference to the experience and to the enjoyment. We knew that the passenger information system was really, really important for Long Island, but we then missed, about the visual accuracy of it. We found a system that was very close and we used for testing, and we felt okay with that. We knew that it wasn't direct artwork and we wanted to do the direct artwork, but then we missed that disconnect. So it can be a little hit and miss. We try and aim for everything that's going to make a difference. And then I have to time box it because we've got so many routes we've got to worry about and we've got to pay attention to, that I can't just have the team keep working on a single route until every bit of feedback that had been given to us. We have to do a pass and then get those out and then move on to the next route. As I say, we've got 15 routes that at the launch of Train Sim World 2, that were the responsibility of the preservation crew. So let's get the areas of most feedback sorted first. I think we've used the phrase before, we want to go to these routes and drain the swamp, and then once we've got through those big updates, we can then go back and be a lot more specific about, right, we're going to go and fix this and potentially release that update, or we're going to go and add that new feature and release that. So at the moment, I think we're now transitioning away from the routes that have had the most feedback because they've been out the longest, and we're able to be a bit more targeted in our updates. So I think Peninsula Corridor and Oakville Subdivision is probably the last of the group where there's a lot of feedback that we want to get through, really.
Don't say that. There's a lot of feedback on the stuff you've already fixed. That's come back supplementary. This is not going to be the last time you revisit those routes.
No, not at all.
But
no,
equally,
I never think that one route is done and we're never going to touch it again. Not only for continued feedback, but also we're constantly adding new features, so we're always going to keep going back. But the cycle is taking. We totally recognise the cycle is taking very long to get through at the moment, and there are still some kinks in getting that cycle moving so that we can get improvements to routes and trains out faster. We definitely.
And we are entering into. I don't know how far along we are, but there is likely to be some organisational changes that take place within the way that development works in terms of how things are scheduled and that kind of thing. We're constantly on the lookout for better efficiency and not having to repeat ourselves, and making sure that the right people are available to work on the right stuff at the right time. Project management, I believe, is the phrase being called. We've always had project management, obviously. We're not new to this, but it's a case of refinements to project management happen, and we've got a new EP starting soon. Have we got? Do you know about a new EP?
For trains, no, we're still looking for that position.
We're still waiting to fill a new EP. Executive producer, who is kind of the big vision holder.
Yes.
and that will make a big difference as well. And so hopefully, when we get these roles and we get these things kind of settled down, we'll see some improvement in the way that we work, which should mean that the work that Adam doesn't get bottlenecked quite so much. But that's to be decided. Now, several questions when you were talking main spec art barn. Quite a few people said, "Are you doing anything about the loco sounds? Please do something about the loco sounds. Please do something."
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that is. Martin has been away on a bit of annual leave recently, but that is what he's working on at the moment, which is why we've actually got a number of routes that were worked on by the team, inverted commas, previously, but they're actually still being worked on. So yeah, we've actually got a number of open projects going at the moment, and I think going to 426 and therefore bringing a lot of these projects to a close as part of rush hour is going to help the team get back aligned.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the challenge with sound is the same challenge that we have right now. Is that if we've got the true sounds available, it helps. But even then, it comes down to those sounds being properly mixed and not encountering weirdness along the way. And there
Yes.
will be some weirdness that comes out if we're layering too many sounds at once. But it is the mix that sells whether or not something is done correctly, or whether it feels right in a kind of audible fashion.
As we found with Long Island, we ran the Long Island was mostly suffering from too many layers of sounds being played simultaneously, and the improvements that we thought we'd made turned out not to be the right ones. So we're still learning from that experience and how we can make sure that doesn't happen again. Knowing that the main Specibarn rolling stock is of such importance, and those locomotives appear in a number of other places where they're in other routes as well, means that we take very seriously improvement of the sounds of the main Specibarn locos, and we need to do a better job than we did on Long Island. We're still trying to improve that.
Yeah. So this is stuff that comes with practice and experience, and it happens over time. And sometimes we get closer to a satisfying end result, and sometimes we don't. But when it comes to working on preserved locos, you're kind of saddled with the sounds that you've got, but you can remix them.
Yes, so we can't yet, on the preservation crew, we can't yet cope with brand new sounds. We're not in a position yet to redevelop the sounds of a locomotive. We tried, for example, on rapid transit to bring the sounds in from the Cologne-Aachen route, and the locomotives were just built completely differently, and we weren't able to merge those in. Now, since that experience, both the preservation crew and the main team, the audio team, have been talking about how we can bring in a lot better standardization so that going forward we don't run into similar issues. I think for the most part we are a lot closer to that situation, so later routes that have been developed won't be as difficult. Rapid transit was only our third, and it was certainly our first German route that was developed, and our first electric locomotive, electric multiple unit. So we were doing a lot of learning back in those days. I think it was 2016, 2017 time. So yeah, we're hopeful that we're not going to encounter that situation again. And if a locomotive comes out that's got a great sound set, the preservation crew would have a much easier time of moving over and taking those learnings onto other rolling stock. Yeah.
Dad, someone keeps asking when's Rush Hour coming out. Summer. And that's obviously summer UK and Europe for that matter, and North America. But that's the only date that we're allowed to give you at the moment. Is summer is when it's planned for. Obviously, as we get closer, we'll narrow those hints down a little bit. But at this stage,
these streams will be converting over to Rush Hour orientated streams.
But carry on. Yeah. No, it's good you were paying attention.
We're 30 minutes in, so I thought I'd give a recap on that particular.
I like your thinking. This is smart work. So from the end of June, I don't know if it will be the last one in June or whether it will be the first one in July. We will be replacing the roadmap stream with a Rush Hour focus stream, which will be the Rush Hour roadmap, which is what we're calling it today. Who knows what we'll call it next time?
We won't be calling it the Rush Map, though. I think that's
let's not.
That's a surefire.
No, that's just a path to madness. We'll talk more about what's happening with Rush Hour, because it isn't just the pack of the routes; it is the core update to the game as well. And there are some goodies in there that I think people are going to approve of. But let's worry about that a little bit later. Someone else was asking about Steam. No updates for you on Steam. There should be an article coming fairly soon about how we go about creating historic routes. So expect to see that soonish, probably before the next roadmap or thereabouts, I would say, is when that's coming out. So yeah, that's coming up soon. But Steam is a long way off. Yeah, there is a long time to go before you're going to see Steam. It takes a lot of work, and obviously with the move to Unreal Engine 4.26, there will be additional goodness in there that we can add into doing Steam things. As soon as we can show anything from it, we'll be more than thrilled to do so. So if we're not mentioning it, it doesn't mean it's not happening. It's still sat there merrily going on the roadmap, but we do have a team that are actively working on it. Similarly, if we talk about the core size, so the other two core options on there, so the download size, that's still work that's ongoing. Optimization is constant. We are constantly working on optimization because that will ensure that everything works smoothly on every platform, and that's what we aim for, is that everything works smoothly on every platform. So it's still, there's a lot of stuff that is work in progress, that is a big beefy project that might not actually ever end. But there is constant work going on, and with each new release we learn new tricks, and those new tricks are what Adam can then take forward to apply to the preservation crew. Just one example is the great feedback that we've had about the virtual destinations on the passenger information boards. It's not just a case of adding them in and letting the timetable that's already there run the system. Players really love when the passenger information system shows where the train has come from off the route and where the train is going to off the route. So that is feedback we've been rolling straight back into any work on the PIS systems that we're doing, so that we can make sure that is going forward, is consistent. So yeah. Monda's saying, is the Steam team doing Steam even when every team is now working as part of the Rush Hour team? It'll be a bit of both. So a focus on Steam will still mean, let's say that they're one of the part of the signalling team who put the signals into each route and hook them up and make sure they work properly and are authentic to that route. Then they will be working on signalling across the board. So while they don't, when they've completed their Rush Hour work, they'll switch back to doing stuff on Steam. Equally, they will probably have time set aside each week to continue research into what are the subsystems that are needed to make that to make those signals work in an authentic fashion for an historic route. So it's a bit of both. So to say that everybody will be focused on Rush Hour, Adam will still be doing odds and ends on the preserved bits that we've already got. But his main focus is going to be on making sure that everything preserved works just fine under Unreal Engine 426. So there will be a bit of a juggling act, but to say that there's a primary focus, it doesn't necessarily mean to the exclusion of all others. It just means that that's kind of the main thing that people are focusing on, because there's a lot to do.
It's a huge operation that we have, absolutely. Yeah. There's many facets going on all the time.
Yeah, and it's in some cases we're getting multiple new builds per day put up to look at and to test and so on, because testing is constant. It's not finish something, test it, and then if it needs work, do that work and then retest it. A lot of it is work is ongoing. Here's a new build, test it. Here's the next new build, test it. Here's the next new build, test it. And that's beyond after you get past the developers testing their own work, which obviously happens as well. Full QA passes with test plans and all of the stuff that you would expect. Yeah. They happen all along the way to delivery. So everything is an ongoing process. Dovetail is very much a living entity as far as development is concerned, and there is always activity going on in various different directions. How's the sound work coming on for Cathcart Circle? No idea. You'll have to ask that on the Cathcart Circle preview stream, which I believe is on Thursday, which once again I haven't looked up in advance, and I shall do so. However, we will take some questions now, and I'm going to go to the ones that were submitted on the forum first, because that's good, because it allows us to actually come up with some answers for you. Let's go over the 313 again. The 313 being in production before the 314, surely it should be further ahead. Yes and no and yes and no. Vehicle artists work on a multitude of different vehicles, and so chances are when Cathcart Circle was decided to be done as a route, which might have been at an independent time to the 313, that we'd already had vehicle artists working on a 314. They may have just transitioned over. I don't have all the facts for you on that front, but hitting our route marks in terms of releasing routes is more critical than hitting loco release marks, because a new route can appeal to a broad section of people who have maybe stopped playing the game for a bit because there's nothing that interests them, or maybe it's their local route so it attracts them in the first place. An individual loco always needs a route to run on already, so it's like we're asking people to, if they're new, to buy a couple of things. Whereas if they're established already, this can be a way of rejuvenating their interest in a route that already exists. So routes take priority, locos come second. So if there is a time limitation that we have going on and we need to push something around a little bit, it will be the locos that get nudged rather than anything else.
Yeah, because effectively the routes create like the foundation of the experience, and then we can build on those routes with more things. So making sure we've got all those foundations in place with the routes is the more important thing.
Yeah. Bruce, I'm going to take your question now. When will the team finally fix the looping sounds on all trains? Eventually. And even then, there will be limitations. There will only be so much that can be done. So, do we want to eliminate obvious loops? Yes, of course we do. Are we able to eliminate all the loops so that they're no longer audible? Hopefully, but it has to wait until that comes round into a preservation cycle. And as we've seen already, that's quite a lengthy process. I mean...
But also, I mean, just to address maybe the elephant part of it, a lot of our train sounds do loop. So we're not resolving that they're looping. We're resolving the obviousness if there's like a repeated click or something.
Yeah,
but yeah, a lot of our train sounds...
It shouldn't be as obvious that it's a looped sound, because there should be overlaid sounds that are disjointed from that original one to kind of mask it a little bit. So it's where it's obvious that's the problem. And that's where we'll take it on. How many developers does Dovetail Games have? 100 or more?
I think we're in the 160 range.
Well, that's full company though.
Well, that
includes people like me. I'm not a developer.
Well, then it's probably about a third of that work on the Train Sim World franchise.
Right.
We then obviously have the office orientated staff, the fishing team, and the Train Sim Classic team as well. But the biggest development group is
did we find out where the internal dysfunction was that came to the problems that happened with the last update and the last DLC? That's still ongoing. We know what happened. We're just trying to find out why it happened. And what happened was that QA reports, they hit there was a gap somewhere in knowledge of having the latest QA reports, and so it looked like we'd passed all QA tests and everything was ready to go, whereas in fact the reports, they hadn't propagated correctly. So
I think the proof of did we solve it or did we find the issue is when we consistently release preserved collection updates that don't have such an impact.
Yes,
so, it remains positive. That's a separate thing.
Look, I'm not going to take I'm not stealing your thunder from you, Adam. But the point is, we shouldn't be putting out stuff that has that level of wonk built into it in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in that instance, something went wrong in our internal processes. So so it's still ongoing as to why it happened, and safe to say we're operating with a belt and braces approach right now, which for those not familiar with the kind of English kind of colloquialism there, essentially everything's being double checked to make sure that reports are correctly being received and understood. I did say wonk, hentis. Yeah, wonk, as in wonky. That's a word. It's perfectly legitimate. You'll be fine. So there you go. It happened, and hopefully it doesn't happen again. And we're taking steps to make sure that kind of thing doesn't happen again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is the MSB update finished? Is it done, not done?
It's done, not done. I'm still finishing off the timetable change where we had to adjust the trains that are struggling to get up the hill in winter and in rain. That has a huge knock-on effect to the timetable. So I'm working very hard to minimize that impact. When a lot of people say, can we just make some adjustments to the Great Western timetable, or can we speed up a train here to make it more realistic from the testing that I've done? And I say, I'd love to do that stuff, but the impact would be significant to aspects of the route or the train. And therefore we can't deal with the knock-on. The fix might be easy, we can't deal with the knock-on. We had to make some changes to resolve the bugs on Msb Update's timetable and the trains that struggle to get up the hill, and I'm now having to sort out the knock-on from those changes. So that is still ongoing. The rest of the work on Msb Update, apart from the audio, is now done, and the team have moved on. So audio and timetable are still ongoing with Msb Update.
Will Great Western Railway have passenger information screens? I saw somebody else say, when will Great Western Railway have livery editor support? Let's put this on the big picture, right? Is that eventually the preservation crew will work its way through all of the legacy stuff that we've put out. What is yet to be decided is whether or not that will include third-party routes. So Arosa Line and Isle of Wight, for example, don't know at the moment. We need to talk to Rivet with that regard, because they might want to do it themselves as they learn more of the ins and outs of working with Train World. So let's put those to one side for the moment. But all of the dovetail stuff that comes out will be revisited, and when it's visited by the preservation crew, it will be brought up to speed in terms of the functionality that should be expected in every route. And that is things like working crossings. It's things like livery editor support, scenario planner support in full to whatever spec is at the time, passenger information screens, the latest, all of that kind of stuff. Someone else asked earlier, because this is kind of related, will Cathcart Circle have the rush hour passenger system in? No, because
comes out before.
Rush hour's not out yet. So it'll only be stuff added after rush hour that has that level of functionality built in. But again, it will be something that Adam can go back and employ as he revisits routes again, because the idea is that a route isn't just visited once; it will be visited on multiple occasions and brought up to speed. Well,
so
at some point, hold on,
we were talking about Great Western. Someone was saying, will we ever get an upgrade to Great Western to add an Oxford extension, add electrification, add the branches, Swindon, extra stock? There's absolutely no plans to do any of that. The electrification, the route is set in 2015, 2016, while the route was being upgraded. The electrification system is not active in any way. It's purely visual. So that route will remain as is. If we go back and do improvements to add features and things, that may be the case, but we won't be extending that route. That route is set as it is.
Cool. Yeah, so the one I was going to answer, which you swerved me off, was a good one. No, this is a good one. Will we at some point get labels on the map? By which I'm going to paraphrase you there a little bit. Will the map at some point be any use to anybody at all? Because at the moment, it just you can look at the map and you go, oh, some lines, and then you put the map away again because it's not going to help you. The answer is yeah. It's we're not happy with the way the map is, and therefore putting a labelling system on there is pretty important. It's not on the roadmap yet, but it is pretty high up the list, and I'm going to big that up. See you later says the word I'm looking for is wonk. Yeah, the map has a lot of wonk. It should be a priority. Yeah, it should. But that's among all the other things that should be a priority.
Everybody's got their priority.
To be honest, I would say the map should be like pretty. We've got a map button and it doesn't really serve much of a purpose. I would say might as well remove the map button. But then people will be going, can we have a map, please? And we'll go, yeah, here it is. And they kind of go, it's got no labels on it. They kind of go, do you want labels or no map? And you're going to go, no, I want a map with labels. And that's not an unreasonable thing to ask. So, yeah, it's definitely something that needs addressing. It's just a question of when it hits the front of the queue to be addressed. The BT says, what do you call a three-legged donkey? Adam?
Donkey?
No, it's a wonky donkey.
Oh, right, yes.
This is a classic joke, Adam. While wonk is the word of the day.
I swear you've tried that one on me before, and it doesn't make sense because I just think of the cool song.
You're arguably the worst straight man I've ever worked with. Okay, right, yeah. So that kind of ties up how additional functionality will turn up in terms of individual routes. As far as core functionality is concerned, we're always doing stuff with core functionality. We talked about optimization before. We talked about core download sizes previously. These things are always being worked on. With each new release, there are new things that are found, and the core team is the one that does the most kind of experimentation with new features to see what can happen.
You say that, but funnily enough, I'm not going to give away anything here, but the preservation crew do have their own experimentation.
Well, there you go.
So one of the things that is core to... That's confusing. One of the things that's central to the preservation crew is not just implementing feedback, it's not just implementing features that people have already seen, but it's also expanding and enhancing routes and trains where they might not, it might not have been on the radar. So a great example is giving a big refresh to the main specified container port, where the 204 operates on that route. You know, that is just giving that area a nice polish and expansion of change, and therefore the preservation crew has been experimenting with more interaction in first-person mode and being able to get out and explore the route more. There are a few little Easter eggs, like a donkey, around our various routes and trains, and so we want to see more of that as well. So yeah, we do have a tiny bit of experimentation ourselves, but there is a lot for us to get through, so we don't spend too much time on it.
Well, it comes down to the opportunities that you're presented, because at the end of the day, quite a lot of people who work on Train Sim World, in fact, the majority of people who work on Train Sim World in a developmental sense, are interested in pushing it forwards as much as they can do all the time. So we'll have many people that are tinkering around with, I've got an interesting idea. And I've managed to kind of skunk works it up on my own time. How about we work this over into the full plan? And as the kind of project planning improves, evolves, and upgrades, then that will change. That we'll find better ways of getting these kind of minor projects integrated into the full game. Leo wants to know why we've got the wrong catenary masts in Cologne. That will be down to environment research and the way that they were built. We don't purposefully put in anything wrong unless it's a compromise because there is no choice. But in this case, it will just be that was what the environment team put in. So that will be why that is. Make sure you've registered it. I mean, as much as environment art is unlikely to be changed in the future, actually, I'm going to upgrade that. Very unlikely to be changed in the future. We want to make sure that we get it right when we do it for the first time. And sometimes that will mean that compromises need to be made in terms of how those environments are put together. Sometimes we'll get it way closer to as it is in reality. Hopefully, where compromises have been made, it doesn't diminish your enjoyment of that route too much. Now, if you're and people do exist who are particularly keen on catenary and the way that it's put together. And for them, that is the core experience of railway is the electrification and all of the subsystems that are built within it. Rail fandom has so many different individual flavours of interest that you couldn't for a moment say, oh, it's only catenary, it doesn't really matter. It really does matter. And for some people, it's going to be chief among the things they care about. So we try to get it right as often as possible, and sometimes compromises are made. So that's the...
I mean, the reality is that we can't replicate a route 100%, in every aspect. We have to choose what are the most important aspects of that route, what is going to make the experience. And therefore, we then dedicate the resources that we do have to those aspects of the route. If we were aiming to be 100% accurate, we would just, run one of those LiDAR laser trains down the route and just ship a video or something. So part of what we do is about getting the experience as well and the gameplay, rather than just being 100% accuracy of the route. It's a lot more of a representation of driving that railway line than it is a faithful, minute, accurate representation of it.
Apparently I pronounced catenary wrong. Okay, I shall pronounce it correctly now. Catenary. Rather like Katamari, the giant Japanese ball thing that just gathers stuff.
I call it catenary.
Catenary, that's what I used to go with.
Cantenary.
Or catenary, catenary. Take your pick. It's your own mouth. Use it to pronounce things however you like.
Overhead line. There you go.
And when you're next streaming, you could pronounce it however you wish. There you go. That's what I say to that. Pronunciation, people. Right, Adam, your green screen's broken. He's not using a green screen. He's using a dirty, cheaty, hacky, auto-fill background thing.
Good old Teams.
Olay. Okay, I should be calling it Olay instead.
Olay, yeah. Olay.
Let us move on with something sensible as far as questions are concerned. Bugs and issues and other stuff that we don't reference on the roadmap. This is a biggie because we changed the way that the roadmap is laid out early this year, because up to that point we had been talking about technical problems that people had reported, or bugs that people had reported, or gaps in scenery, or incorrect this, that and the other. And when there was
everything that I normally have to deal with, everything that is on my radar that I see every day, we were just dumping it straight onto the roadmap, and that didn't create the greatest of experiences.
And not just that, but we were getting everything from the core team as well. So everything that the core team were working on and tinkering around with, we were just chucking it all on the roadmap. We're going, this number of fixes, it all sounds brilliant. And then we'd come to do the update to the roadmap, and a dozen would be missing, and we'd kind of go, well, where have they gone? We'd kind of go, oh yeah, we're not doing that now. And you kind of go, what? Well, hang on.
They've gone on the back burner.
Whatever. Yeah. They kind of go, no. It's gone into the backlog. It's gone into stuff we'll address when it's grouped together, and it's a more sensible time to do it. And the problem we had there was that bugs and fixes of that kind, the progress being made on resolving them was moving in and out of, was changing so rapidly that it was actually impossible for us to track. And you'll see that it's impossible for us on the roadmap side to track. On the development side, it's all tracked properly. On the roadmap side of things, what we communicate to you, because we do bi-weekly updates, it means that a lot changes in between one block and the next one. So it's just not viable for us to kind of go, and here's all the stuff that's being worked on. And then the following time we kind of go, and now it's not being worked on. Because that just leaves you feeling like the rug's being pulled out from your feet the entire time. It's why on a regular basis you'll find in patch notes when we put out an update, there's stuff that we've never spoken about, but it was definitely something that had been reported. That's the point at which tech problems and bugs and minor issues and stuff like that, that's where you'll find out that it's been addressed, is where it turns up in those patch notes. Now we
shifted it so the detail was in the actual release, not in the detail we were working on, so then suddenly the actual release could differ quite badly.
Right, but the problem is that then leaves a gulf in between, I've reported these problems. Right? I've found these half dozen bits and pieces on Route X. I've reported them. I've posted them on the forum. I've sent a support ticket. What next? Time passes, and it could be 6 months. It could be a year. It could be 10 years. It could be who knows how long. Eventually, maybe something turns up and says, "Oh, we fixed that now," and that is an indeterminate period of how long that's going to be. And unfortunately, that's just how it's going to go. Everything you report via the forums or via a tech support ticket, it is all logged. All of it. Every last piece of it is logged. If it is pertaining to a particular route, Adam will receive all of that information when he turns his attention to that route.
I get it from the Kayaku support team. I go to them and say, "Give me everything related to Peninsula Corridor."
Yeah, off the top of your head, how many items would be in a typical list that you get in?
In the order of probably hundreds.
What are we talking? 200, 900?
Yeah, sorry, lower hundreds. Yeah, like 100 to 200 items, of which probably 50% are things that we can make a difference to. But having that is the important thing. Like this discussion we're having, I had a great conversation with Natalie about this, where there's what would be the word? Disappointment with the Kayaku system, because you log a ticket and then there's no feedback.
Yeah.
And actually, what we came to the conclusion of was that to have a discussion about an issue, the forum is definitely the place. However, it is important to log your issue with the support system, with Kayaku. And then what I can do in particular is get those support tickets and then go looking for the discussions related to them on the forum. So I get that list of, here's the critical things that have been reported. Right, let me go and search and see what has been discussed about this and what were the things involved in that. Whereas the ticket might just have, I had this particular problem at this particular point in a route. So if you want the discussion aspect, the forum is the place. There isn't going to be a large amount of communication with the support system with Kayaku. The Kayaku is for logging the issue and making sure it's on record, and then the discussion goes with the forums.
So, I mean, there is this gap between you reporting a problem and then it potentially being resolved. That's going to exist, and that is not something that can be adequately resolved. Because there is, as mentioned before, the development team are in constant motion. When a new release comes out and it has problems with it, like Hamburg-Lübeck did, then we drop what the planned activities were to be working on to make sure that the most urgent of those issues are addressed immediately. There will be some left over. It's inevitable. There will always be some left over because with all the best intention in the world, we couldn't deal with everything that was possibly reported. And while we aim to get it up to a high level of satisfaction for as many people as possible, nay, even delight on occasion, there will always be times where that thing you care about the most is something that doesn't get resolved for a long time or doesn't get resolved at all. The main thing that that we aim for is that everything can be played, everything can be completed, and that the experience you have throughout that is a reasonable representation of reality. We've actually got a couple of separate projects going on with regard to quality. We do quality assurance already, and that is what we call testing. Testing is quality assurance. It means that what we put out works. What we're also doing in the background, and I've started work on this as well, is quality control, which means put the bugs to one side, forget those. This is not that group's function. That group's function is to make sure that what we're putting out is good. That it works, great. Is it good? Because something rubbish that works is still rubbish, whereas something good that doesn't work is still rubbish. So the QA are working to ensure that what we put out is functional. What we're also going to be working at is what we put out is good. Now, the obvious flaw there is, what does good mean? So the first part of the equation is establishing where the line between good and not good, where that lives. So I'm talking.
And would you say that moves as well?
No, it shouldn't. No, well,
as we expand on the
put
features
out,
of Trains to World 2,
we're
suddenly a new route. Suddenly a new route has a lot more features than an original route for Trains to World 2. So
it's even less about the features.
But in terms of judging something good or not,
a new snazzy, exciting feature can certainly lift the appeal of a new route, but it won't get away from the landscape's rotten. It won't get away from your ballast is the wrong colour. It won't get away from your catenary poles are incorrect. Those things you can't escape from, no matter how many bangy whizzy new features you've got going on in there. So quality is about establishing what is the minimum level that Train Sim World should accept. And historically, we've been a little bit up and down. We've been inconsistent, and sometimes we'll hit a good one, and sometimes we'll hit one that isn't as good. There's not a million miles of difference between a top-notch route and one that isn't top-notch. But at the same time, we want to narrow that gap and overall increase the benchmark to be something a little bit more... one where there are fewer obvious... But that's just not right, though. So that's...
We might be labouring this point a bit too long.
It's nebulous. That's the thing, is that it's incredibly subjective to the individual, and it's a nebulous marker to set, but I think there's one that can be set. So, I mean, I've been speaking to a number of different people, some of whom are extraordinarily critical of what we put out, some of whom are incredibly positive about what we put out. And by aggregating the way that they think, I can kind of get a feel for, actually, where's that line? Where does it sit? Because you're never going to be able to satisfy someone whose expectations are beyond possible. And at the same time, you're always going to satisfy someone who just kind of goes, it's got colours, I'm happy. So it's, you can kind of discount those who just hate everything because apparently Dovetail made it. And those who just love everything because apparently Dovetail made it. So it's a work in progress. There is work being done on that. Right, Adam?
Well, it's, the preservation crew, it's not going to be a one-pass situation, because the software is moving forward as we're bringing the older routes up to speed. So we will then go back and do another pass. I saw a great question go by about how many routes are left to get their first pass from the Preserve Collection. And I did a quick tally. Somebody says I was looking at Spider in the corner of my room, and actually I was looking up at the board of all the Preserve Collection stuff. We have roughly, I think, about 5 to 6 more routes to get their first pass on Preservation Crew. We're about 6 months into the year, and we've so far updated, admit we haven't released, but we've updated 8 routes to my knowledge of all the things we're doing.
That doesn't count until they're released.
Yes, exactly.
How many have you released?
What is 4. It now? 4, yeah. 4. Yeah.
Okay. Well, look.
And then everything will get a release to its current standard.
4's more than nothing, but until it's released, Adam, you're not allowed to claim it.
Well, I've written routes in progress still.
Yeah, so. It feels like progress to you, but as far as the players are concerned, yeah, well done, you've done that thing. Can I have it? No.
Yes, that is
it doesn't count for nothing.
Frustration.
Senor Snore asked a good question. Was in my personal opinion, me personally, what's the best quality route in the game? I'm the wrong person to ask. Many of you are here regularly, know where I sit on the level of kind of rail fandom. Is that I like trains, and I quite like driving them, and I quite like games that involve trains in them. Would I consider myself a rail fan? Only like the barest casual rail fan, but I like them and I appreciate them and I find different things about them. What I don't have is a critical eye. What I'm not looking for, I mean, I will call out things that look inconsistent, and I will call out things that don't look right, and I will call out things that are obviously not working correctly, because they're obvious. What I won't call out is that platform is the wrong colour, because I don't know that it's the wrong colour. I won't call out there are too many weeds alongside the side of the track, or there are too many trees here, because Southeastern High Speed's a very good example. I thought Southeastern High Speed was fine in its first instance, and I rode that route every day for a year and a half. I knew that route very, very well. The absence of fences and the ballast colour and in fact, the only thing I would say was missing from Southeastern High Speed was that the QE2 bridge was in no way as imposing as it is when you ride past it in reality. It felt like it was too small and too far away. That was it. That was the only thing that I would have called out as that doesn't feel right. Everything else, it's why I say I'm the wrong person to ask, because the level of attention to detail I have is far more in tune with the people who are in general happier with the game. So I would skew the wrong side to be raising the benchmark. I'm far too cheery with it. Now, in gameplay stuff, I probably skew the other side in terms of, things that we could be doing with it to make it a more engaging experience. But that's an entirely different topic. So, yeah.
Team gameplay. Woo-hoo.
The team gameplay. Yeah, totally. Right. Yes, let's go for questions. Adam, kick off. I'm going to fish up the ones that were submitted on the forum.
Cool. So, are we getting the fix to Freight Exchange before rush hour? I am trying to find that out. I want to know if rush hour, because that is if Freight Exchange can go out before rush hour, because that is a very limited fix to just that scenario. So yes, I'm pushing for that. I can't give any guarantees.
And that's the other thing that's worth mentioning. It's related. Is someone submitted via the forum? How many more updates should we expect before rush hour? Not many.
No, not many.
Is the answer, because releasing public builds ties up a large number of team members in preparing and testing those builds in preparation to go out for players. Because anytime we put a build together, it then goes onto 3 platforms, and we work with 3 independent services to get all that. Quite a few people are involved in that, and therefore those people's time, because they don't just do that, their time is better spent on helping us drive towards rush hour. So
yes, there is some point where we have to switch our systems over to focused on the rush hour release. We can't wait until rush hour release before we switch over. It's going to be a couple of months that we're working on that. So combining the routes in development with the underlying technology and changes to the core that we're making, we have to treat it as though it's a new game, even though it's not. It's the same game, but we have to treat it as though it is a new one, and focus our development in that kind of area. So, there might be 1 or 2 fixes. We're hoping that East Coast Way will the update with the PIS system will be before rush hour. But don't expect anything on the level of Long Island or Rapid Transit. Nothing like that is going to be before rush hour.
We will try and nail down, because leaving you dangling on maybe is absolutely useless. So we'll try and get anything concrete we can with regard to what you should expect in advance of rush hour. It might not be the news that makes you the happiest in the world, but at least you'll then know where you stand. Obviously, the process that we've been going through will resume as soon as rush hour is out, and probably after the first update to rush hour that comes out, because even if we do a strong performance on rush hour, there will still be stuff that is not quite right, not working perfectly, and when you turn a few thousand players loose on something, they're going to turn up stuff that we didn't. Now, if they're turning up stuff,
we found recently.
If they're turning no, I'm not allowing that. If you turn up stuff in the first 5 minutes, we found.
No, not those. No, I'm talking more about things like the improvements to the PIS system that we were able to get in. That wasn't technically a bug, but it was a really great change that we got that feedback and we were able to turn that around quickly. So yeah.
Okay, no, I'll allow that. Do we have a checklist of bugs that you work through from previous routes into new ones? Chief Longshin, we answered that earlier. Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yep. We're always aware of stuff that's wrong with Core. So Core receives, just for those who aren't, routes are kind of individual projects, and they live in their own little bubble, but that bubble is connected to the core of the game, which is what all the underlying tech is, and a lot of the systems that are shared, and a lot of kind of modular bits and pieces that are then deployed across each individual route. So work on core is ongoing. So if we know of a core problem, that is addressed separately to route problems which exist within their own bubble. So yeah, the two work in parallel. So there is constant work being done on both.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I'm still working through my question set here.
Somebody, this actually goes back a bit in the chat. I've been writing quite a few down. Can a team consist of one developer? Yes, it can.
I'm a team of one.
Team sizes can vary over the course of a project. So if you have a feature team, it may start off with just one core engineer. And then as things become available for other people to start getting involved, the team would grow. So that's absolutely, yeah, it can have one.
I'm having a go. Take it in turns, Adam. Don't bogart the mic.
You talk for most of the stream.
Will any of the core updates, such as memory optimization, be tied into Rush Hour? We covered this early on. We'll cover it again in every stream, because until we've got to the point where everybody kind of goes, the memory is optimized, we'll always be asked. Memory optimization is ongoing. It's continuous. Why is it important? Because it allows us to get more out of consoles and systems that have less power, basically. So less processing power, less memory to play with, that kind of thing, allows us to do more with it. One of the reasons that we have this kind of layers idea in the first place is because on last generation basic unit consoles, we've actually exceeded what they're capable of doing and still performing at a reasonable rate. So we're trying to bring that back into line so that all layers can operate. There are other solutions afoot, but memory use, it's like it won't ever be done. It will never be a project that's complete because there are always more ways you can optimize. So what we're hoping for is to hit a point at which we kind of go, right, we can now give our console players a richer, or at least a more varied experience on somewhere like Munich, Augsburg. But it might not be all layers turned on. It might be that you're chopping and changing between layers and choosing the ones that you want and something like that. So it's hard to say for certain. When will be the next gen update? Oh, sorry, take it in turns. You answer that one. When's the next gen update?
No, I've got a different question.
Go on. No, I asked a question. You can have one of your own as well.
Rapid Transit ice layer, is there a fix for it? Yes, there was some discussion on the forums actually about, and on Discord, about is it an issue because Cologne is a core route or considered a core route rather than a piece of DLC. I didn't get the exact specifics from the engineer, but I believe that was indeed the issue. So I don't know when the fix will come out. Because Rapid Transit has now transitioned over to be a 426 route, so it won't come out until after Rush Hour, or at least it'll come out with Rush Hour. But yeah, I think we're testing that fix at the moment. So thank you for the discussions on that. That was really good.
You were talking to Skyhook earlier on. Are they aware that the rolling stock for the uranium tailings train and the loading process is inaccurate and wrong?
I wasn't aware. No, I believe they set the rolling stock for their project very, very early on, actually. So we have been working with that rolling stock for a long time, or Skyhook have been for a long time. So no, I don't believe they do consider that the wrong rolling stock. It may be that is the rolling stock they have available. But yeah, that's a question for Skyhook, really.
Well, what if Skyhook are slightly less reachable? Would you mind having a word?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Have a word and go, are they happy with the rolling stock as is? Because there's been some reports that it's not quite right.
Well, I can tell you already that they are happy because they've been working with it for a long time, but I can certainly ask some more detailed questions.
Okay. I mean, it might be that they're just not utterly familiar with how the handling of uranium tailings should be dealt with. Certainly, it falls beyond my realm of expertise. Okay, right. Good. Will we have any COVID timetables? No, probably not.
No. We actually did talk about, should we put masks on characters? Should we put vaccination posters up? And the feeling of the team, this was a question that we actually put out to the whole team, potentially I think even the company, is this something that we should embrace? And the feedback was, and I was a big part of like pushing, should we do something about this? The feedback was that we didn't think it was appropriate as a company, we didn't think it was appropriate to remind people of what was going on. You know, we all want to enjoy driving trains and Train Simulator and being there. Why would we want to drag in that current situation into our
There's a word you're looking for, and that word is escapism.
There you go, yeah.
Right,
now,
we're providing escapism.
It,
you don't want a representation of how fun it hasn't been for the last year. So that's.
Some people have, some games have embraced it and brought something in, and it's a very, very fine balance between entertainment and, you know, you're just impacting my experience. Yeah. We decided as a company it wasn't appropriate to engage with that.
Yeah, Stu Joy says that actually Skyhook don't really have much of a public presence, so any feedback for them is going to come via us. Right, there you go. I just deputised you. Congratulations.
Cool.
There you are.
Noted.
I'm going to run through about half a dozen, maybe more questions all at once.
This is a quick fire round.
Yeah, this is a quick fire round with one question, with one answer coming out the other end of it. Will the tube sounds ever be updated? Is there any work being done on Clinchfield issues that are still open? Is there any work being done on remaining tunnel lighting issues for Southeastern High Speed? Is there any work being done on preserve collection updates for Peninsula Corridor and Oakville? What's the current status on WSR preserve collection route? The answer is the same with all of them, is when Adam's team get to it, we'll address open issues. Until Adam's team get to it, expect no movement on any issues that are specific to that route. Yes, that sucks, but yes, we'll get to it. Will we address your particular bugbear? No guarantees. Will we address many of the things that have been reported? Yes, absolutely. Actually, some more homework for you, Adam. Pull us together. If we're going to mothball the roadmap as is, possibly after the next stream that you and I do, pull together the total number of fixes you've done that have reached the game.
Whoa. Okay, I'll see what I can do.
See what you can do. I'll take a ballpark estimate, but it's worth noting that a significant amount of stuff gets done, but there is a significant amount of stuff still to do, and it's an ongoing process. But we're going to keep working through that process.
And that's the key thing, really. It's a living thing. There is no end date to the preservation crew.
Yeah.
So yeah,
if anybody tries to put one in, they'll have me to deal with.
Yeah.
Because I'll go scrap. I'm a believer.
And by the way, sorry, just to clarify that so that I don't get caught out, made it to the game, does that mean I've implemented the fix or the fix has been released?
Fix has been released.
Released, cool.
Yeah, doesn't count until the players have got it.
Yeah.
The fix has been released. Further caveat, fix has been released and works.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. No, there you go. No, it's not going to be that much work. It's probably the cherry picking off a big fat work list, backlog, flipping, check, load, whatnot. That's technical, incidentally. You can look up the definition of that over with Microsoft Project or Open C Visual Developer or Unreal Engine 4.0 documentation. Good, right. So yeah, there's that. Now I want to finish. There's always more questions, but we've got to wrap it up at some point.
Yeah.
Let's talk Penzance. We were this close
It was this morning.
It was this morning that we were told we couldn't tell you what loco/locos/loco were coming to the Penzance route, or locking in what the Penzance route is going to be. We were this close this morning to being able to tell you. We weren't able to tell you today. Sorry about that. We should be able to tell you by next time around, and if not, then someone's going to have to go shout at Rivet for me. I'll get Mike to do it. He's very softly spoken. He gets good results out of people, occasionally even me. So yeah, we were this close to being able to announce it, but it's just not quite finalised yet. Once it is finalised, then we'll bring you up to speed. Yeah, there you are. Yeah, good. Yeah. Right. Now, want to finish off just with, this is more of a public service announcement rather than anything else. Is we, as you know, TrainSim World is available across, let's say 3 platforms, but actually it's like 7. And those platforms are PC in all its many varied combinations, but that all lives out of Steam or the Dovetail store, but it's all fundamentally the same thing, right? So it doesn't matter if you're running on a potato, it doesn't matter if you're running on some fire-breathing beastie that kicks out a heck of a lot of heat if you have it turned on for too long. We're also on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4 Pro, PlayStation 5, and Xbox One, Xbox One X, Xbox Series S, and Xbox Series X. I miscounted, there's 9, 8, whatever, it doesn't really matter. For the sake of argument, let's call them 3 different platforms. Each platform has slightly different rules with regards to 2 fundamental things that players care about. Number 1 is what time a new piece of DLC or a new version or a new loco or whatever it is, what time that releases. Now, you probably know this from experience already, but it's worth spelling out. Those times are different. On the consoles, PlayStation particularly, it follows the sun from Australia. So at midnight in Australia on the day of launch, they will get the release. It will then release everywhere across the world until it gets to whatever country you happen to be in at midnight on the day of release. Xbox is similar, but instead of it being, it's not quite as granular on Xbox when it comes to country by country releases. It is slightly more region oriented. So Xbox releases are slightly different, but again, I'm pretty sure they're midnight releases as well. I need to talk to Xbox people some more. Actually, someone in the comments will tell me. Yeah, either way, their release times are slightly different, but they're both ahead of the PC release, which will always come at 10 a.m. Pacific time in the US, which works out at, and they are GMT -8.
Do we control the Steam ones?
We do have control over it, but experience and history has dictated to us, don't release something when Valve aren't in the office.
Yes.
Now, Valve have support crew 24 hours a day, but our kind of account guys who look after what we do, they rock up during normal business hours in US hours. So if we have made a mistake of some description, or it isn't working properly, or anything along those lines, we want to be able to go, could you possibly push the button that makes everything fine, please? And that really only works when people are in the office. So that's why that's why PC releases at 10 a.m. Pacific time, because that's where Valve are based. That's number 1. Second, let's now flip the scenario. So if you're a console owner, then stuff turns up early for you. And the same, it can be true of updates and patches as well as full releases. Patches, however, tend to be closer aligned, and we can go out at any time with those. We're less cautious when it comes out to putting out patches in terms of waiting until Valve are alive and well and up and running. But when it comes to sales, which is the other thing any hardened train sim player, train sim world player knows all too well, Then we flip the scenario. PC obviously gets a better deal for sales because we are allowed by Valve to run sales more often. Each of the 3 platforms have different rules regarding when you are allowed and how and by how much you're allowed to discount something on their store. And we take every opportunity to run a sale that we can get on every platform. Every time we have a chance to do so, we do it that way because we recognise that that the people who play our game fall into, or the people who play our game on a kind of continuous basis fall into 2 separate categories. They have 2. This made sense.
Here's all the caveats.
There are 2, right? There are 2 types of stuff that we release. There is one which is I must have this the second it comes out, and for every player that will be a fraction of the overall everything we put out. But those who sink a lot of time into the game, they want to build out a nice big collection. So we want to make sure that they can pick up stuff they're less bothered about at a discounted rate. So we put that out later. But at the same time, we have to set that off a full price. Now, our prices haven't changed in years. Our full route price has remained the same for ages. Our loco prices have stayed the same for ages. People usually say, well, if you want to offer it up for less, why don't you just make it less in the first place? Because then we don't get to go into a sale. And that's critical because anytime we put something in a sale, and this is just, this is regular purchasing behaviour, as you kind of go, I could get it cheaper now, or I'll have to wait and get it a bit more expensive, and maybe not this time, maybe this time. And it all comes down to how much you want it. But we want to make sure that you get a decent deal when you buy stuff. Now, we know already that PlayStation users are less than impressed with the number of sales that they get to experience. And we know that Xbox players are, they're almost pitchforks and torches at the door with the number of sales they get. We know it is not level pegging between the 3. We do what we can in terms of making sure that everybody gets as many sales as possible, but we are limited by the platforms. They have rules and they don't just apply to us. They apply to everyone and they apply them evenly to everyone. We've got a slightly different game, a slightly different software entertainment offering to other games companies because we're trying to build out a hobby rather than building out a single job game. And therefore your collection is important to you, and that's why the preservation crew exists. It's why we continually look back at what we've done before to try and bring it back up to speed. It's why we don't want to leave people behind. When Train Sim World 2 came out, we tried to make sure that, we were forcing you to buy it if you wanted to get new stuff from that point on, but we tried to make it a great deal. And, it was 3 routes for the price of 1 and it brought you up to speed. So we know is that where I was working towards, it was part public service announcement because this is not something that we really say publicly that often, is that we are aware that there is a disparity between the 3 platforms, both in terms of release and in terms of how often sales are offered. But that's the way it's set up. If we can do more sales on console particularly, we will do. We absolutely love sales. We love them to tiny little bits because every time we do one, we sell stuff. It's fantastic. But there you go. So that's about it. Is there a burning question that you've seen that you want to answer, Adam, or are we done and dusted for the day?
We're done. I think there's nothing.
You're frazzled. I'm going to let you go. Dunk your head in a cold bucket.
I'm twitching.
Yeah. Okay, right. Adam's going to go and apply some sunscreen. I will now cover off the exciting things that you can look forward to watching here on the whatever we call it, Railfan TV. Oh, gracious me. There you go. And Jamie posted this today. Oh, it's a thin one this week. Oh, thin but good. Lean, I would say. So tonight you had us. Well, okay. Tomorrow you've got Workshop Wednesday. Jamie's on with Matt. They'll be talking about trains, I reckon. And then on Thursday, they're doing the second Cathcart Circle stream. It's Matt and Nat, the rhyming double bill, and I believe they're going to be playing it on console, so you can see what that's like. Thank you very much for watching today, Adam.
Thank you very much for letting me answer questions.
As always. It's great. If you had a big important question that was missed, post it in the forums. We don't get to all of them, and sometimes you ask questions that we simply can't answer. Hold on, there's one now. Look, will the Bakerloo line get additional services eventually? Probably.
It's behind a core fix.
There's a core scheduling fix with the way that services are handled that needs to be resolved. We've covered this a few times. We've got to fix that before we can add more services onto Bakerloo. We were expecting it to be done early. It wasn't. So we're still waiting, which is why it dropped off the roadmap. Wembley for Bakerloo. If you're on console, Wembley for Bakerloo is optimization issue.
No.
It's not.
For some reason, Wembley and the Shard were switched off on console. That was one of the first fixes we did. That is waiting for the Bakerloo.
Are they on your things I've fixed but players can't use yet?
Yes.
Okay. There you go. They're done, but you can't have them. Good. Thanks for tuning in. Keep us appraised of any information you want ahead of the next roadmap. And if we miss stuff today, chuck it our way and we'll get to it. We'll catch up with you next time. I need to find the right button because I found the wrong button on the way in. Might as well find the right button on the way out. Say goodbye, Adam.
Bye-bye, Adam.